It's been, pretty much the only, launch pad that has consistently challenged Pump's dominance. And so whenever anyone talks any shit about, Hyperliquid, try to educate your founders on the importance of marketing.
Welcome to a new episode of The Feed, the podcast where we sit down with the top builders and innovators from the Pyth ecosystem. I'm your host, Pepito, and today I'm talking with Ben, who leads marketing at Raydium. A great episode packed with great insights from Ben, who tells us about the Raydium story from a simple DEX to a complete liquidity solution on Solana. So let's dive in. GM, Ben, thank you for hopping on the feed. You're the first guest on the pod. First of all, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I've been following some of your podcasts in the past, and obviously been following Pyth for a very long time. You guys are, a huge player within the Solana ecosystem and general crypto infrastructure, and it's, nice to have two players, meeting of the minds here on this podcast. So thanks for having me.
No, pleasure. And it's been super fun working with Raydium as well in my couple of years here. Know a couple of the contributors on your side. So yeah, super excited to have you on. To kickstart, I know you have quite the background as leading marketing for I'd say a few wallets and on Ethereum.
Yes.
So I'd love for you to get into a bit of your background and since you joined Raydium about I'd say a month or two ago.
Yeah. So I joined a couple of months ago. Anyone who is, I think, above the age of 30, 35 has come from another industry. So I actually spent a decade working for Fortune 50 companies. I worked for, I helped lead marketing for brands, Procter & Gamble's brands all around the world. I worked for Hathaway and spent a good 10 years there. And number one, to me, it was like an MBA in marketing. I learned a lot more in marketing in those companies than I ever could in university. So it was kind of a very formative experience. The other thing it gave me exposure to working in developing markets. I was based in Africa, based in South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya. I was based in the Middle East. And so I saw up close how sort of centralized financial institutions are failing people, how difficult it was to send money from one country to another. And eventually I realized that I was much more passionate about creating financial inclusion for the world, which is crypto's ultimate promise, than, let's say, marketing the latest detergent or shampoo line. So I casually got into crypto in 2017 and had an amazing opportunity to become the head of marketing at Bitcoin.com, where they launched a wallet brand initially. An outfit owned by Roger Ver, obviously one of the OG crypto figures. So kind of went into the deep end on crypto. Eventually ended up at Exodus, which is still to this day my favorite self-custody wallet. I've always worked for self-custody wallets. I always believe that is on-chain, and I always felt like if I'm working in an on-chain product versus a centralized product, I'm essentially betting on inevitability. And I think the recent trends show that more and more people are comfortable investing on-chain. More and more people are comfortable self-custodying their funds. The exciting part about working for Exodus is they were the first U.S. company to tokenize their shares on the blockchain. So all these trends that you see about ICOs and internet capital markets, I think Exodus was the one that sort of pioneered it, and they were sort of before their time. It was a great place to work at. I spent 2 years there. I think I was employee number 25 by the time I left. It was 220. And now they're listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So, those people that were allowed to buy in through the public offering, ended up having their shares and their tokens and their assets listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So I think that's a beautiful story of, not getting in, as retail, you have to wait until you get in for investment until the IPO phase. And then crypto kind of solves that. And then eventually ended up at Raydium. I've always been, active in Solana. I love how there's this kind of meeting of like culture and capital. I think the Solana is still the chain where capital formation happens the fastest. I think there's also a cultural and emotional element, like the fact that the founder of Solana can drop a tweet and suddenly a coin goes to 10 million. No other blockchain does that happen. So I feel really at home here, and I love the Raydium story. It's like the comeback story that no one really talks about, right? Everyone who was in Solana at the time, we were kind of on the ropes when the FTX collapse happened. And, a lot of these protocols, tons of incentives to move to chains. You remember the big NFT collections moving to other chains, Magic Eden focusing on other chains, and then Tensor eating their lunch. And those that bet on Solana won, and was one of them. And now we recently crossed 1 million and 1 trillion in total volume. So the $1 trillion club. And with Powerhouse, I think my ideal marketing role is where there's a great product, where there's product market fit, and there's a narrative that needs to be told. And when there's like smaller players out there, that's on mindshare, I look at this as like a great challenge. So it's great to be here.
I think that there isn't really a history of marketing at Radiance, but also feels like laying the tracks here, and I love those challenges. So that's kind of my.
No, and I think you hit the nail on the head on capital formation culture. I know I made my way to Solana. I'd say, pretty close to the previous all-time high, around 250, 260. That was probably 2022 or 2021. Can't remember exactly, but and the culture and the builders culture, I think, is super strong. Where I know, like, the ones that double down are really winning today, like Raydium, who's been there day one. So yeah, I agree. And is this part of the, I guess you said, part of the culture that really attracted you to say, hey, Radium's a great place for me to take a new chapter of your professional career?
Yeah, I worked at sort of chain agnostic wallets. I worked at challenger brands. Always felt like I wasn't fully in the arena where things and where the excitement was happening. My latest stint was at a Darknet wallet. I had this crazy hypothesis that because of a native account abstraction, it's going to unleash these killer features, and eventually technology wins. Well, technology that nobody knows about, that nobody uses, is ultimately not going to win. So you need culture, you need narrative, and you need to get people to care about your products. And I wanted to end up in a protocol that actually makes money. I think launch is the easiest way for any protocol to make money, just by evidence of the fact that if you top 20 highest revenue making protocols, disproportionate number of them are on Solana. I always had an affinity towards Solana. I was there 2020. I don't know if you were there, but I was at Breakpoint. It was in Lisbon.
Like 2 days before FTX collapse, like the CZ tweets would fly out, and I went to that, and they, that meme with the "this is fine" with
the dog and the cub fire around them. They actually, as an ironic joke, they had this like cutout where you can take a picture of it, and all these FTX employees were taking pictures with the "this is fine." And 2 days later, the whole thing collapsed, and I saw, there's still some devs that were left behind, and you can tell in their faces like these guys aren't going to quit. And when you have that level of commitment and community, like I was like, Solana's going to come back. And I firmly believed it since. And you've seen an amazing evolution that's happened. Obviously, meme coin mania helped it all, but like it's matured a lot. And now you have like our days. We've had some great success stories where people are even looking beyond meme coins, and it could be like, if not replacing Wall Street, certainly an alternative to Wall Street. And you've seen some great success stories of fundraising that has happened on this chain. We'll be super excited about the future.
Yeah, I wasn't at that break point. I've only heard stories from about Pyth and Pyth adjacent teams that were like, "Oh my God, what's happening? This may be the end of the world." But I think most of this has turned into now the Solana I mean, to me, feels like the most competitive blockchain and ecosystem in terms of products. Where now we see, I mean, aggregators just competing. You have Raydium, which was very much, I'd say, a simple DEX, air quotes,
Right.
turning into really a liquidity, solution, a global liquidity solution. Um, what feels like this Radium journey has been, and really competing with all the different products and teams that are now building on Solana.
Yeah. So look, I think we welcome competition. I think it makes the space stronger. Ultimately, it's going to benefit the user. If there's more aggregators, if there's more, it's debatable whether we need more launch pads, because I think we may have more launch pads than tokens on any given day. But I think what it reminded us is that we need to move from just being this sort of invisible infrastructure layer to creating a relationship with the user. And we see a lot of competitors kind of integrating, vertically across the stack, from aggregator to launchpad, to a mobile app, to basically like a swap providing UI. What gave me confidence that Raydium can rise to the challenge is obviously, a lot of Raydium's growth has been behind just the expansion of the network. We also grew quite a bit behind, pump tokens migrating, obviously automatically to Raydium. But when, Pump launched their own AMM, within a month, Raydium launched Launch Lab, which is our own token launch platform. And since that launch, it's been, pretty much the only, launch pad that has consistently challenged Pump's dominance. So that gives me confidence that either via building it ourselves or partnering, having the right partners, in our case, like Bonk would be the flagship partner in terms of the launch pad space. And there was a given time when, we gave Pump a run for their money, and I still think, we've got a comeback baked in there. But other partnerships, like what really excites me is for example, our StockX partnership, tokenized stocks, which basically give everyone around the world access to, invest in tokens that are representative of U.S. stocks. The U.S. stock market has outperformed global stock markets for the last, 10, 15 years. And, the entire world didn't have access to that. And now we have like 250 million plus of volume of people investing in NVIDIA and stocks. And I really think, Raydium and their partnership with Xbox, like I also look at Raydium as sort of this sort of enabler of success, this visible ecosystem partner that's not just going to provide the liquidity, but it's going to give you advice on how you can best succeed. When, projects like Collector Crypt, they launched the cards token. It was like a really welcome meta of like, hey, you can actually invest in tokenized Pokemon cards, and everyone realized, oh my god, I have it dug up in my mom's house and whatever and all that. It wasn't just, hey, open a liquidity pool. It was like, okay, how do we market this? How do we ensure that we're going to be successful? How do we potentially coordinate on a KOL level, on a marketing level, and make sure that your project's successful? So that's the perception I want to drive. And I think that's the not just the narrative, but also eventually have a product experience where people just come back and start using Raydium products, and we have that user relationship. That's ultimately going to be the moat in this this space that is trying to become more and more commoditized.
No, I agree. And even, I mean, from interactions and looking at what's out there on Solana, to me, Raydium gives me this, this feeling of, we're not here just to work on something for a week. It's like long-lasting partnership support on a level of things where this is, I mean, what excites me very personally about Raydium. And so you touched upon a couple of the things, I think, but what are the top 2, 3, marketing and growth opportunities that you're working on at Raydium for the foreseeable future?
So I think challenge number one, I think marketing is also central to the product experience and how we communicate the product. So whenever I am, leading a marketing team, number one, I make sure everyone on my team and myself, we use the product. So it's something that I do all the time. So for me, number one priority is to provide a better experience. If you continuously improve the experience, it keeps traders and liquidity providers and make sure that they come back. The best marketing is always a product that people can't stop using. So that's number one. I think narrative gap. I think that we need to not just be perceived by our partners, but also the end user as, we're not just a DEX. We are sort of the liquidity layer. We're the infrastructure powering everything from perps to stable coins to RWAs to meme coin launches. And then finally, I'm really looking forward to just, bootstrapping a community of believers. And I think that, we've tactically done some KOL activations, but I want to identify those kind of like small to mid-sized people that maybe need a bigger platform, that actually believe in the product, actually use the product. And we're trying to identify those people right now. We've recently done a super team bounty that went really well. We had like 70 submissions, and there's incredibly talented people, within the Solana ecosystem that we can elevate. And I can tell whether they legitimately have passion for what we're doing and whether it's just slop or not. So I think we just need advocates. People want to hear from other people, not from brand accounts. They want to hear from Pepito, and you need to build a relationship, and that's kind of the trend that we're seeing, is that people's expectation is that they have access to the teams and access to voices and access to ambassadors and building those relationships. And crypto, you don't have a lot of users, but that middle of the funnel of establishing deep relationship with those like few thousand power users is critical, because they can be huge amplifiers of your narrative.
Totally agree, and I feel like Pyth is in that same category of it's a bit of an invisible product. You don't go on Pyth Network and do anything particular, but you're more the backbone, the Oracle infrastructure for literally every project on Solana, I'd say almost. And I think you're totally right in going like, I need to find those 10, 20 advocates, and we've been super lucky, and this is more on our community guy Chop, who has been doing an amazing job of, I guess, early 2024 identifying our rock stars, or true believers that are now creating videos on the daily. I'm in some crazy Telegram group chats now where people are just creating some TikTok content, Instagram content around Pyth, and I think that's what really resonates. And yeah, if you give them the tools and they've got the passion and the joy of using the product, ton of stuff is possible, and it just grows the marketing team as a whole exponentially, without having to me recording videos or social media lead just tweeting a bunch of stuff. So I totally agree with this.
So I think you guys have a decent, it's hard to market an infrastructure player. I mean, obviously you guys, you pioneered like the pull on demand Oracle technology, but people don't know these types of details. So you need to create this.
Most don't care too. And even that, this is super. This is very our job of, I guess, marketeers, to try to put the right words up top of complex things. And still, I think we got a ton of work to do on our hand to really communicate this even better. Let's switch gears to, I think we have had a couple of interesting fights or drama on the timeline. I think with Binance and the founder of Limitless around token launches, how much project give to Binance or sexes for listing, as well as this aggregator, I'd say war, Titan, Jupiter. So yeah, two little guys trying to take on bigger ones. I'm curious to have your thoughts and what you think of, I guess, maybe as a marketing strategy for smaller guys, but to have your sense of marketing wise, is this wise to do, or overall thoughts and feelings?
Yeah, my overall thoughts and feelings. I thought it was exciting conflicts on the timeline. I think that the poking the bear strategy only works in as much as the actual incumbent or larger player responds. You're trying to bait them. And sometimes the best response is strategic silence. When challenger brands kind of do this, it's really calculated, but they're essentially leveraging like a psychological phenomenon, which is the underdog effect. People naturally root for the underdog challenging an established power structure. It creates earned media value. And it's something that challenger brands who don't have huge marketing budgets just kind of need. So I think both these examples really perfectly illustrate this. I think it especially works is if the conflict is inherently shareable. I think in the case of Limitless, there's always been like this unspoken rumors about, Binance's listing requirements. I'm not going to comment on that. Who knows what is true, but there is some underlying truth, or if there's some underlying conversation already happening that they tapped into. There's also like genuine news value, and it was it's quite memorable. And the moment you bait a CZ or a Binance to start having that discussion, it's recognition by them that you're one of their challengers, and that you basically set the terms for the discussion, and then you kind of there's this saying like don't get in a fight with a pig, because in the mud with a pig, because you both lose and the pig enjoys it, and that's kind of what happened, and it ended up getting like a lot of earned media attention for Limitless. In the case of Titan, it's really hard to get people to switch an aggregator or where they're used to getting used to doing their swaps. And when you kind of have like founders crashing out on it versus like, I'll give you an example. I think a great example is Hyperliquid. Their founder like barely ever tweets. And a lot of people got rich off the hype token. So whenever anyone talks any shit about, Hyperliquid, you just have like this rabid community just attacking you. And the only thing Jeff has ever said publicly is you're welcome to trade it somewhere else. And that's kind of like, it's harsh, but it's kind of saying like, hey, you're not on my level. And then you let the community do your fighting. If you lead the fighting, then ultimately you're just getting a lot more eyeballs on that. So I think that it's very common to just kind of pay too much attention to the timeline, thinking that that's where all the marketing happens. And it's really hard to have that emotional discipline, especially when you strongly believe that what the person is saying wrong, to just simply not respond. And, I've seen some personalities that I think get so much hate on the timeline, and they're so incredibly disciplined. Pump is a competitor, but I do respect the fact that Alon probably gets the most hate on the timeline, and you never see him sort of get down in the mud. And, he's willing to go quiet, and he is a person who really understands strategic silence. I also like the way, Raydium will never go down and start comparing or besmirching, because to an outsider, like most of the people are not active in DeFi. To an outsider, two players fighting is to me very EV negative. And it's actually just going to say, actually, I don't want to get involved in any of this stuff. And us as a whole, as a Solana DeFi, we do have this issue of, our token, like we have, very high revenue, great fundamental, DeFi infrastructure, and our tokens and the way the market values it, I think, is very much undervalued versus what we deliver. And I think that's an overall problem. And when two DeFi players start fighting, it's ultimately going to be a loss for the ecosystem. No one really wins. In this case, I think Titan won because a lot of people didn't know they existed. And it just created a lot of content where people side by side compared it. And also it just kind of drove awareness of the fact that they don't have a token yet. So now all these people that want to farm are suddenly going to start trying out Titan. So it's an exciting strategy. And, these principles are not just for crypto, so there are, real world non-crypto examples. You saw like, Dollar Shave Club calling out Gillette, Pepsi versus Coke challenge. Pepsi did this taste challenge. And then Coke actually responded and said, we have new Coke, that is like admission that our Coke tastes like shit. And in those cases, sometimes it's smarter to just have, strategic silence. It's often the strongest response, or never just play on the challenger's chosen battlefield. And if you're going to respond, really just address your customers' concerns, not your competitors' claims, because that's not what people care about. And use those attacks as like, motivation for improvement. Your best comeback is to say, hey, here's how we improve these things, rather than just legitimizing your competitor. So I just thought it was exciting to observe as a marketing professional, and also just being that it's happening in crypto, and it just had it's never a dull day in this industry.
It's true, never a dull day on CT. I mean, what's really, I'd say, fun and good is you have, the founders, getting in there, talking about their products, and as much as sometimes it can feel like, this is unnecessary drama. There's no one winning this war because, as you said, get in the mud with a pig. Everyone gets muddy, and that's where I think true that you mentioned Raydium doesn't get into this as a, I think, very strong point. As it's very competitive. I've tried to bite my tongue a couple times with other oracles where the space is very competitive. We've got rabid communities. The OG Marines are not the easiest or most fun to deal with every once in a while, but it's like sometimes you just don't want to respond or acknowledge because you're going down the rabbit hole of I'm gonna get buried and I'm not gonna get out of this argument winning whatever I type on my phone. So I guess you touched upon, but this is, the strategically how you go about anything. I guess with Pump launching its own AMM was a bit of the competitor or trying to eat its partner's lunch, where staying out of it and building the best products is oftentimes the best solution.
Yeah, exactly. And if it truly does improve, dynamic curve, and there were some really good product updates that came with Launch Lab that became, the standard for new launchpad. So the best way is always to respond with innovation and try to grow the pie. And, the good thing is why I felt great about joining Raydium is also, I'm never going to be asked to do anything unethical or organize FUD campaigns or do anything that's kind of EV negative to the space. I really see, Raydium is trying to be like the enabler for like broader growing the pie and never responding, responding to competition by being better. I mean, you saw recently in the Oracle space, there was a huge controversy of someone trying to dox a competitor's community member, and that's just not good for the space. Like we should, I really believe that when you've still got 90% of the pie to come on board, a rising tide lifts all ships. We're almost like I would call it more co-opetition because there's a bigger audience to win out there versus like there's so many people that are going to need oracles, like you fighting with Chainlink over trying to convert one, blockchain. Like, there's a new blockchain launching every week. There's always going to be a new player you can convert. So, focus on getting that outside on board. And, when they look inside this industry, the optics of like people infighting is just, it's not great. So, and I'm glad that everyone on Raydium is very much on board with just having this very EV positive message. And, for me, it's always a red flag of like, hey, how do we, create FUD against competitors? Like that means you don't have the product to win in its own right. And that's what you need to be focusing on.
Totally aligned there. To now go to a bit of the Pyth Raydium relationship.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure Raydium is one of the earliest data provider to the network, and providing data for a bunch of probably most of the SPL Solana tokens out there. How important do you give this all Oracle infra to the growth of Solana and the DeFi ecosystem? And why it kind of it makes sense for Raydium to be part of it in some way as providing data for a bunch of assets.
Look, I think robust oracles are absolutely necessary to, like I said, for me, people coming on chain is an inevitability. I think what we see recent events is that when you don't have the right oracle infrastructure, bad things can happen. And people, it's kind of like your security. You don't think about having a secure wallet until you get hacked. But you see examples of like a single point oracle failure in the case of Binance or the Jelly or all this kind of stuff. And when you're working with partners like Pyth, who have you have the pull model, you have a much more advanced oracle, you have multiple sources, and you saw on October 10th, Pyth didn't fail. Nothing happened to Raydium. You look at DeFi, passed with flying colors, and every single time these crises happens, going all the way back to the FTX collapse, shows that DeFi is as robust as can be. There were like 180 billion in loans liquidated in Aave, and there was no bad debt. So I think like DeFi has matured a lot, and I think people need to realize that picking the right oracle is going to be critical to driving that adoption.
No, yeah, I think those those black swan or terrible down or up volatility event are a great test for the infra. And yeah, so far on October 10th, I think most of the infrastructure, I'd say the entire Oracle space, I haven't heard of anything major coming on, but are great tests to even further solidify the infra. I think there was some Aave USD things where they wanted to check on the how the oracle is used, and maybe not it's the liquid USD feed that we should use, but the pure redemption one. So yeah, it's those events for the overall workings of the DeFi ecosystem. It's great to stress test the infra super well.
Yes.
And I've got one final question now for you, Ben. What any great advice you'd give to fellow marketeers, leading on a DeFi protocol, and maybe if you have some extra tips for Solana-based DeFi protocols?
So my tip to every marketer is, I think ultimately, my tip would be to just, try to educate your founders on the importance of marketing, and try to, as much as possible, bring any skills that you have from Web 2, because I don't think there is a separate Web 2 and Web 3 marketing. It's just different channels and different parts of the funnel that are more important. Like I think, like I said, that relationship building, because we have like wealthier users and you have to convince them to connect a wallet and do a lot of actions, you need to build that relationship. To just tap into and listen to regular marketing podcasts, learn from non-crypto examples. What's going to help you succeed is great attitude and resilience. There's going to be a lot of punches and a lot of downtimes, and as long as you have that's the one thing you can't coach is attitude, and everything else can be learned. The other thing is don't ever assume you're a marketing expert. Marketing is constantly evolving. What worked 3 months ago is not going to work today. So just approach very humbly and always be open to learn. And I think just create a community of folks that you can learn from. The one thing I have found from successful marketers, or anyone who's successful, is they don't want to keep all that knowledge to themselves. They love mentoring people. So I get insane amounts of value from being in these marketing chat groups, being in these crypto chat groups. So establish those networks, identify a mentor, and find someone you really look up to, and just straight up go to the events, go to a Breakpoint, DM them. A lot of times you'd be shocked how positive the response, and especially in this industry, people have viral posts about I sent 15 emails to Mark Cuban and he finally responded. A lot of crypto founders will respond. I'm shocked. And even before I had the C in my title, a lot of them responded, and a lot of great relationships came out of that. And you have those kind of sounding boards, and you need them because most crypto folks don't work in an office. You don't have those random chatters. You can't just run an idea behind them. So you need to build that kind of community of people who back you. I think that's a lot of advice, but I hope people distilled the key points from that.
Never get you haven't gate kept the advices there. Amazing. Ben, thanks a lot. Really, really insightful time with you here. What can we wish Raydium for the rest of the year and the next 6 months?
I think you can still expect a lot of exciting projects that are going to be partnering with us and that are going to, form liquidity and launch in partnership with us. I think you'll see some exciting developments on the product side, ultimately with the goal of it improving the user experience and creating a much more sticky relationship. And then I think, I'm hoping to bootstrap a great community of Raydium believers. So if anyone is interested in that, my Twitter handle is @Ungvari, or you can even message the Raydium handle. We check it occasionally. And anyone who's excited about Raydium, I'm always excited to talk to them. Stay tuned. Without revealing specifics, I think the next 3 months will be very exciting for Raydium.
Yeah, I'll keep my eyes on the main account, and go bother Ben in DMs or the Raydium Discord at suppose is quite active. But no, thanks a lot, Ben. Was a pleasure having you on today.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it, man.